you had your own country out here, basically.
Yeah. Warren was the king, and everyone bowed to him.
That place has mirrored windows.
It's not surprising. People believe that you have to have 3 wives to get into heaven.
This was Warren Jeff's room.
This was his actual room.
Just like 19th child, I was pregnant with my 5th.
God told me that this 14-year-old is meant to be your 4th wife. Are you telling me you don't trust God?
They were the 2nd or the 3rd or the 50th wife.
When I was in it, I felt like I was happy.
The very famous pray and obey sign.
If a man's kicked out of the community, they could have a multi-million-dollar business. That's gone. Their wives are gone. Their kids are gone. Their house is gone. Everything.
That's one of the leaders living in that beautiful home.
They can just take your kids and...
Your kids belong to God, not to you.
I look back now and think, I can't believe I lived in that.
Good morning, guys, here in southern Utah, and today we're going down to the border of Arizona to meet up with a man who left the FLDS church. That's the Mormon Fundamentalist Church. He grew up under the reign of Warren Jeffs, where they practiced polygamy and were pretty much separated from the outside world. He had multiple sister mothers, dozens of siblings, and just a crazy story. So we have very privileged access to get in with someone like this who can show us what the town is like, what that was like growing up there, and what's currently going on in the community. Let's do this.
It's weird coming back.
It's weird coming back.
Oh man, just the memories, right? There's so many. So right here in this little lot where now there is a house, there was a double wide trailer home that we lived in as kids. That's where I was raised. A lot of my older siblings were raised here as well. Even during that time in such a small area, we had probably about 15, 16 kids living there at once. And
how many mothers did you have?
So originally when I was born, there were 3 moms in the house. My mom was the 2nd wife. That's a whole interesting story about how, the wives got along and all of that. But my mom was the 2nd, and I am about the middle child of hers. She had 12 kids, and I have 36 siblings altogether.
Wow.
So big family. A different family owned this home, but the dad had passed away. In typical FLDS fashion, they just juggled everything around. They moved the family away, said, okay, now you guys need to move somewhere else. And they moved us across the street, and we said, okay. And so we just grabbed our things, came across here, and this was my childhood home right here.
Okay, so this woman here, FLDS, or hard to tell? Do you know?
My guess would be an ex-FLDS member, yeah.
Ex-FLDS.
Ex-FLDS,
okay.
Or someone from over the hill. A couple things give it away. She's wearing red. Red's a big no-no in the FLDS community. Could not wear red, not even a tie, let alone a skirt.
Just because it gets attention?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it was religious. So Warren Jeffs, the prophet of the FLDS, told us that red was not allowed because it was a reserved color for the return of Jesus Christ, that he was going to return in a red robe. And it was sacred, no one could wear it.
So what percentage is FLDS here now, or fundamentalists, would you say?
Okay, so fundamentalists, there's still quite a few. I would say probably 80% are still fundamentalists.
In town?
In town. But a lot of them, I would say the majority, maybe 90% of those people no longer believe in Warren Jeffs.
Okay, so by being fundamentalist, they're not part of the LDS church, part of the Mormon church as the outsiders would think.
Yes.
They practice polygamy.
If they were, I guess if you want to call it lucky, if they were lucky enough to be given an extra wife, because marriages were all arranged and completely dependent on what Warren Jeffs decided at the moment. If someone deserved another wife, if they were righteous enough, it was up to him.
Okay, so I would think there's a supply and demand issue.
Yes.
There are only so many women to go around. If a man is taking 3 or 4, another man's getting nothing, right?
Surprisingly, you're not the only one with that question.
Okay.
And so how that happened is, it became common for Warren Jeffs to just kick people out of the community, claim that they did something evil, and say they're not worthy to be here anymore.
Sure.
And he would force them out of the community, and that would open up all of this room for women to be passed around to other men.
Okay. Simple observation. I've seen a lot of pickup trucks in this town with limo tent.
Yep.
And jacked up a bit. What's going on with that?
So that became a thing when I was out here, where you buy a truck and you would spend all your money on it. We weren't allowed to spend our money on anything else. That was our one chance to spend money that we wanted to spend money on. And so we would get away with getting a truck, doing all this stuff to it, and we thought it was cool if no one could see in our trucks, you know, in case we had a girl in there or something, because that wasn't allowed. Dating was not allowed, ever.
Okay, so tint it out so you could have a girl in there, and go up to the hills and do what you need to do.
So
Is that what that was?
Well, it became common to kind of hide, but it was also hiding from the outside world, you know? Like, it was just became this very secretive thing in the community that no one wanted to be seen by the outside world. So it was us as teenagers getting away with things inside the community, but then the older people would do it as well to hide from the outside world. Well, it's good to keep it moving.
And you brought security, correct?
I did bring security.
Your wife, Melissa.
Yeah.
So I see houses like this, and we'll see more, that are unfinished on the outside. Why is that?
So, you know, there's a lot of opinions about that. The most popular one is the fact that it was a tax break. If they don't finish the outside of their house, they don't have to pay certain taxes on that property. Unfortunately, the FLDS Church tried to find a lot of ways to get around paying their taxes, to the point where Warren Jeffs just told people, don't pay your taxes. And you'll see on this building here on the side, there's a UEP symbol.
Yeah, what's that?
So that stands for United Effort Plan, and that was the organization put together by the FLDS Church trying to keep everyone together, and basically the church owns everything now, so we'll make sure that no one goes without, but you turn in a lot to the church so that they have the means to then disperse it throughout the community. So a lot of people, they never owned, or everyone actually never owned their homes out here.
Interesting, it was all the church.
Yep.
It was all the church's property?
Owned by the United Effort Plan.
You'd pay a tithe of 10%, right,
no,
to the church?
Here was different. The mainstream LDS church is 10%. In the FLDS, it was more of the leader would stand up on the pulpit and say, every man over the age of 18 needs to give us several $1,000s for such and such thing.
Okay.
So there were tithing calls, as they would call them. They would just get up and say, we need the money, and everyone would turn it in.
So the church owned most of the town at one time?
The church owned all of the town at one time. Wow. Unless there was someone living here that didn't belong to the church, maybe that property didn't belong to the church.
Okay.
But the church owned everyone's homes. Everyone was completely... They were under the direction of Warren Jeffs, and he had power over them in every aspect of their life, down to their kids, their wives, their homes. Everything they owned belonged to the church. This is a good example of Warren in hiding. So this home right here is now turned into a hotel called the Most Wanted Hotel.
Okay.
You know, because Warren was most wanted by the FBI for a while. He built this as a second home for himself. We'll see his first home as well. But during some of the time when the FBI was after him, during that era, he was staying here in this home. Now it's a hotel. Anyone can stay there if they pay the fee.
Bit creepy to stay there, perhaps?
I have not been in that one, and I don't plan on staying in it, to be honest. There are certain things. I'm not superstitious about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there are certain things when it brings up certain memories of your childhood, especially when I respected someone like Warren Jeffs so much and deeply and fully believed in him.
Until what age?
Well, honestly, I left the church at 18, but I didn't leave because I stopped believing in Warren. I still believed that he was the prophet, believe it or not. And I thought, you know, maybe down the road, after I go out and experience life a little bit and realize that I'm wrong, maybe I'll come back and join the church again, because that's the only way to heaven. That's still what I believed at age 18 when I left. And so it was after I had left and had been out for about 6 months that I realized and started hearing all of the stuff that he had been doing, and realized that he was a false prophet and doing a lot of awful things.
So growing up, that was normality to you to have multiple mothers?
Oh, yes. My father, he was the mayor of Hilldale. When I was about 9 years old, my father married his fourth wife. That's where he stopped. He ended up with 4 wives, and that was it. But yes, it was very normal. Every child knew exactly who their mother was. There was never a question of who do I belong to? Are you my mother? I never asked that question. But each mother would give a little bit more of attention to their own children. My mother would pull us aside and make sure that, you know, we were living a certain way that she thought was the best for her children.
Okay.
But as far as tasks go, everyone just pitched in. It was like one big family. We all lived in the same house. We all used the same kitchen, ate together. I would sleep in the same room with a lot of my brothers that were from a different mother. It was more about the age. I was probably closer to some of my brothers from a different mother because I was closer to them in age. So.
Brother from another mother came from FLDS.
Exactly.
Who knew?
Exactly.
Sorry. I had to drop that in there.
There's a lot of the brother from another mother kind of thing, that's for sure.
So was it odd to you? I guess not, because that's what you knew, but one night your dad would go with one of your mothers, the next night, is that how it works? You go with one mother, the next night another mother, the next night another mother?
Yeah, so how that worked in our house, and every family probably did it differently, but father had his room, and each mother had their room. And I honestly didn't really pay attention. The sexual stuff was so taboo, it was so hush-hush, they wouldn't even talk about anything. Even people getting married never got any kind of sex talk. It was all just so hush-hush. And so I never really paid close attention to how things worked. Even asking the question, where do babies come from? That wasn't really a question that I ever asked. I didn't dare ask that to my parents. But I did notice that sometimes one of the mothers would go and be with father in his room and spend a night with him. So I think that that's how it always worked, is the mothers would go to him, not him go to their rooms.
Okay.
Because the mothers also had young kids in their rooms. The infants would stay with the mother in their room until they got a little bit older. And I've heard stories, one of them being that when the father married his third wife, which was, so my mother was the second, so she came after my mother. When he married her, my mother was very jealous and had a very difficult time. I heard to the point that she actually wanted to leave at one point. So I know that it can be very difficult and there can be a lot of jealousy. Other things that I would hear, or that I saw personally, is one of the mothers getting really upset because they hadn't had a child in a long time. Now that I'm older, I'm realizing she wants her husband's attention.
Okay.
Because really, that's the only way that they're getting his attention, as far as that goes, because they don't have any kind of birth control. That was completely against the rules. No birth control whatsoever. So if a mother doesn't have a child for a really long time, now looking back, that was because she wasn't getting as much attention as maybe she wanted.
Okay. So what's your relationship like now with your mother?
It's not. Yeah. So when I made the decision to move away because I had chosen to live a different lifestyle, I didn't want to live this way anymore. Some of the rules I disagreed with. One of those very obvious rules were not allowed to date, not allowed to have any kind of relationship before marriage, because all of the marriages were completely arranged by the prophet. So when I made that decision, I was also making the decision, which I knew, unfortunately, that I was not welcome back. I was not welcome back to the community. I was not welcome back to my family or the home or anything like that. So that's what that meant, and that's where it is today. It hasn't changed. All these years later, I don't have any kind of relationship with my mother.
Does your mother live here?
Not here anymore. She lives in a nearby town. Most everyone that believes in Warren Jeffs have moved at this point. He told them to move because too many apostates, those that have left the church, were moving into the town. And so he told everyone to leave. A lot of people live in Cedar City, Utah, Kanab, Utah, nearby towns.
So you're an apostate in their eyes?
Yes.
So a lot of your types that grew up here, moved away, are coming back because they have rights to some of the land. Is that correct?
That is common, yes. A lot of people are coming back and reclaiming their homes. Whether it was their childhood home or a home that they built themselves, they are coming back and getting those homes back. This big building here, this was Warren Jeff's home, is now the Dream Center.
What's that?
The Dream Center is a refuge place for people that are leaving the church. Mostly women and children will reside here. Some men do, but mostly women and children that need the support and the help making that transition, and in some cases hiding from FLDS members still, because they'll come and try to get those children back. So they need this place to hide in some cases, and also just to help get them on their feet. This big block wall here, as a young boy, I helped build it.
Do you remember Warren Jeffs?
Oh, yes.
What was he like?
He was very intimidating. I thought he talked with God. I thought it was a normal thing that he would literally go and have conversations with God. That's what we were told, that he was this perfect man that could do no wrong. But I met him multiple times in his yard here.
So before we get into Warren Jeff's home here, this has got to be extremely brutal that your mother doesn't want to see you, or it's just how the cult works. Like if someone goes against it, even if it's a son, family member, they're no longer part of us.
That's how it works, unfortunately. And because I grew up here, I knew that's what I was getting into.
Okay.
So it was very hard though. It's something that as I get older and have kids of my own, it becomes more difficult that I'm not allowed to have that relationship.
Time doesn't help at all.
Yeah, no, it does not.
What about your father?
So he is a little bit more open.
Okay.
I think the church gives him a little bit more leeway to have conversation with his children. As far as like a close relationship where I can go and show up to his house, absolutely not.
No way.
No way, no. He still belongs to the church, believes in the church, and that keeps him away from apostates for most of the situations, I guess.
What about your brothers and sisters?
Well, I have about half of them that have left at this point.
Okay.
So I have a good relationship with them. But for those that still believe, it's the same as my mother. No relationship at all. Not allowed to.
So they're just in a completely different world.
Oh yes, they're told. They're told that if they have communication with the outside world, especially apostates like myself, that they could be damned to hell for having that.
Can we walk down here?
Yeah.
So do they feel American, or they don't even think about that? It's just the relationship with God and that's it.
That's what it all comes down to. They believe that the law of God is way, way, way above the law of the land. As far as the American laws and things like that, they are way below the laws of God.
Okay.
And that's why if Warren says, hey, don't pay your taxes, they say, done deal, I'm not paying my taxes, because that's what he's telling us to do.
And he's still doing that from prison right now?
Oh, yes.
Life sentence, correct?
Life sentence. He's in there for life, two life sentences,
How
I
does the
believe.
message get out?
He writes letters. Also, for a long time, he was given phone call privileges, where he would call to certain homes and everyone would gather in, and he would actually talk to them for hours from his prison and giving them what he would call revelations on how they should live.
How many are still following him?
Well, at this point, there's about 5,000 that still believe in the FLDS belief in church.
Okay.
And for those that 100% believe in Warren Jeffs as this godlike figure, at least 2,500, which is low compared to what it used to be.
They'll do anything he says?
Anything.
Anything?
Anything. Yep.
Wow. And I was with some fundamentalists yesterday, and this is where it gets confusing, not to you, but for outsiders.
Yeah.
They want to have nothing to do with FLDS, right? And they thought what happened here is insane.
Oh, it was.
Right, and they're all about mutual consent with their marriages, nothing below 18. I don't know the inner workings of any group, and just by doing one video, but they seem to be in a good place. Like they're really cool and almost light to hang around.
Yeah.
Which was not what I'd expect.
Yeah.
So it's
people all have their opinions. The FLDS think that the mainstream Mormon church is the big and bad church that went astray. The Mormon church looks at the FLDS church as the wicked people, that we can't be associated with them because they're doing all of these awful things, which is true. Most of the awful things were done by Warren Jeffs, though, and the followers were just trying to live good lives.
This was a very interesting point the guy I was with yesterday brought up. He's like, so you casually dated before you were married? I'm like, yeah. So you would be with a woman and then leave her and then be with another woman? I'm like, yeah, that's sort of secular America, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, where are the values in that? You didn't support her. You didn't help her out in her life in the long run. You were just there to leave. What is that?
That's an interesting point.
And I'm like, interesting. And then the relationships I saw yesterday, it was interesting. There was a young couple that they're in a monogamous relationship, but it sounds like perhaps down the road it might become
Be interested in another
polygamous. And I can't imagine that struggle in that. But do you think there are happy polygamous relationships, as in the guy having 2, 3, 4 wives And it's a good thing and it functions well, or do you think it's just pretty much impossible to make that work?
You know, I think that it is possible. I think there is the possibility of a good, happy relationship in polygamy. Now, do I think that it's the common? No, I don't. I've seen and heard too much about people, the jealousy, you know, the jealousy is the biggest. But a lot of cases, even if the wife wants to be a part of it, there's still the human instinct and the jealousy behind it, and it does cause problems. This whole block, this whole city block is surrounded by these walls. And it was Warren, it was Rulin. His dad owns the house out in the corner, which we'll take a look at.
Oh yeah, way up there?
Way up there,
okay.
Yeah. If you got inside these walls, you were somehow special because it was so closed off. The gate that we saw open to the garages where Warren Jeffs would pull in with his car, those were never open like they are now.
Okay.
They would open and they would close. There were video cameras everywhere. It was very intense. I look back now and think, I can't believe I lived in that. Like, you know, it seems so crazy that I was ever a part of it.
Wow.
But local law enforcement or members of the church, they also did what Warren said. So that makes things tricky, right?
So you had your own country out here, basically.
Yeah. Warren was the king, and everyone bowed to him, basically. Exactly. And the crazy thing is, it wasn't always like that. Before Warren Jeffs, you know, his dad was also starting to get things turned a little bit crazy. But before the Jeffs took over, it seemed to be a pretty good community. The only problems they ever had with the law was the fact that polygamy was a felony at the time. But other than that, there wasn't the tax fraud and the other things that the FLDS church started doing later on.
The financial burden for the father had to be intense.
Oh, yes.
If you have dozens of kids, 3, 4 wives, how would they support all of that? Like, what were their jobs?
That's a very common one as well. My father was the mayor of Hilldale, so he didn't get paid that well.
Right.
You know, for being a mayor, it was okay. But we were all growing up. He had older children. By the time he had so many of us, there were older children that were helping support him financially. They would go out, they would work, they would bring money back to the family as well, until they moved out of the house later on.
So it bucked the trend of having more kids costing you more money in the modern world. It was all your kids were making you money.
Exactly, and we would start working. I mean, I was out on job sites at 13, bringing in money to the family.
What kind of work?
Construction. We would do mostly construction. Most of my brothers did the same.
So Melissa's trying to get us into this home, right?
That's the goal. Let's see how she did.
Melissa, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Double thumbs up.
Oh,
Thumbs
wow, cool.
Oh, Gladys is here, yay!
Gladys is here. Not only that, but she also called Luke for us, and he said he's gonna come give us a full tour for you.
Oh,
wow.
Here in 10 minutes, but that was about 5 minutes ago.
Amazing.
You're
I
a
thought
hero.
You guys were around the back, so I was doing laps in the.
You're a hero.
We're gonna come in here. This is where a lot of families, especially women and children, who are needing a place to transition out of polygamy, come here. They have, I believe it's 40 rooms. There are kids who don't even have birth certificates. They don't have social security numbers. They've got nothing because of the timing of them being born into the community. It's a really awesome organization. It's like poetic justice a little bit that it's in one of Warren Jeff's old home because he reached so much havoc,
That's
right?
interesting they decided to do it here. Why is that, do you think?
Well, Brielle Decker,
Okay.
she was the 65th wife of Warren Jeffs. And when she came back, she was able to reclaim this property because when the UEP was handing back out properties after a whole property tax issue that was going on, they were giving them and trying to let people reclaim their homes.
That's who we're meeting?
We're not meeting Brielle. She's not here today. She's
Okay.
fabulous, though.
Okay.
We are meeting Gladys.
She works here.
And she works
Okay.
here.
Okay.
And she also, I'll let you see how much of her story she wants to share, but
Okay.
she's fantastic. And
Former
then-
FLDS.
Former FLDS. And Brielle Decker, she donated this to the Dream Center so that it could become this. So she found the Dream Center is an organization that has different homes all over the
Okay.
US
Okay.
and places to help people. And she was able to give them this home to be able to help these people.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so Gladys, where are we?
This is, well, what used to be Warren Jeff's house. They reassigned the house several times, like they did to everybody in the community. And so the third person after Warren that lived here, he had, I believe, 8 wives. My mom had been reassigned to him. And including my mom and her kids, he had 101 kids. This is Well, what we're using now is a staff kitchen. The first time I came and visited here, I had walked over from Will and Jeff's house over there and walked here to Warren's house.
Okay.
And I came into this kitchen and they were serving dinner. Warren was sitting in the dining room there with his family. There was probably 3 moms in the kitchen at the moment and several teenage daughters helping prepare a meal in this kitchen. These halls had carpet up to about here. It was like this green floral carpet with a border thing on top of it.
Oh, they're hiding over there? What's up? What's up? It's all right. We know you're here.
Warren Jeff's room.
This was his actual room, Warren Jeff's
And
room.
you feel, yeah. And so this was his actual room, and then this is the only speaker that can go throughout the entire house. If that gives you an idea. This is a very large house, and he's the only one that can talk through the entire thing.
This was his bedroom.
This was his
This is
bedroom.
his bedroom.
Which is interesting because it's one of the smallest homes or rooms
smallest
in the
rooms.
home.
Okay.
And he would actually brag about that. See, I'm humble. I have the small room.
Yes, he
Okay.
would. I remember
So,
him saying that.
did you have a close relationship with him, or how was it?
Oh, in a way, yes. My dad's second wife was his sister.
Okay.
And so I knew him from then on. His sister, another sister, was my best friend.
So you were saying carpeting. Can we go down here? Is that okay?
Yeah, there was carpeting all the way down the hall.
Okay.
It helped with all these little kids that were around that had all these little hands and injuries. If they bumped their head on the wall or whatever, this carpet's all soft. And
So when did you leave FLDS?
about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. How is it?
And I
Is
came
it
straight here.
is it a tough journey, or has it been
It's
liberating, or how is
It's liberating.
it?
Yes,
Okay.
it's liberating. It's just the support system outside. I don't feel like I always have to. I wonder if if what I'm doing is what's right.
Okay.
And
okay.
so it's when I was in it, I felt like I was happy. I was one of 4 wives, and I felt like that was the best thing for my kids. And this is great, I have live-in babysitters. If I need to go do something, then I can just say, "Here, sister wife, you can watch my kids." And she's like, "Oh, sure, I'd be glad to." And I would do the same for her. And I had so many kids to love. It was great. I loved it.
Do you miss your sister wives at all?
Oh, absolutely, love them.
So you don't keep in touch with them, or do you?
No, they're still in the church.
They're still in the church,
They
okay.
refuse to talk to me.
So they were, in a way, like your best friends?
Oh, for sure.
Isn't it hard for you to have been in this world, left, but then now you're
Oh yeah, I
working
miss it.
in here?
I miss it a lot.
You miss it a lot?
Yes, I miss it.
What exactly?
The friendship, the having people around all the time, if you have a tough day or need to talk about something, you have a sister wife, a friend you can just go to and talk to, and they understand your situation. And
Right.
have shoulders to cry on or laugh with, or and people to ask advice from. Hey, this kid got hurt, this kid's going through this, and we just always just like living best friends.
So
and the
you-
kids felt the same way.
You
Kids
think you
all
made
lived
the
with
right
their best
decision
friends.
then, by leaving?
I had to.
You had to,
I had to
okay.
pull my kids out of a dangerous situation.
Okay. So that's when motherly instincts just come right into,
Yep.
and you do what you got to do.
Yeah, up to last year, I had decided that I had to stay in the church for my kids.
Okay.
And then last year, after they started, I was afraid they were being trafficked, so I had to just pull them out.
Okay. So when you were in the church, and say you came into contact with somebody like me, a Gentile,
Mm-hmm.
what were your thoughts? Did you look really down? You try to avoid the outside
No,
world?
you're
or?
just a Gentile, so you're fine. You don't know better.
Okay.
And so you're just fine. We can talk to you. We don't go into depth or try to become friends, but you're fine because you're just a Gentile. You're not an apostate. You don't have
I'm not like Sam who left.
you don't have a alternate intention to pull me out of the church.
Okay.
Oh, so this was the kitchen.
The maximum amount of people you'd have in this home was how many?
The maximum I saw was, well over 100.
So just kids running
From
around
extended-
everywhere,
Well,
wives.
Yeah. Well, each mom kept track of her own kids. I was mopping in this kitchen one day when I stayed here. I was pregnant with one of my kids, and I was mopping the floor. And she came in and she says, when I was pregnant with my 19th child, I mopped the floor, and the next morning I had my baby. And I
Okay.
was just like, 19th child? I was pregnant with my 5th.
19, that's a full-time job.
Yeah, so we.
It's like
but the older ones help with the younger ones, and
Okay, so if it wasn't for the trafficking issues, and I don't want to get into that because I'm sure it's super sensitive.
right.
would you have stayed in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if those issues never happened, you think that would be the better decision to stay in?
I liked the lifestyle. I liked having lots of kids and having lots of friends around and stuff.
Right.
Now that I look back on a lot of things, I can see that it was not the best decision to be there, but now I would have never made that choice.
What about the polygamous aspect? Was that a challenge? Your husband having many
To me,
partners?
it never was.
It wasn't?
No.
Okay, walk us through that don't understand that world. You just don't have jealousy issues.
No, I didn't. I mean, a lot of people did. There was a lot of problem with that.
Okay.
But it was just all I'd ever known. So it was just like, okay, well, I'm sharing my husband, and if I can help a sister or sister wife or whatever, and I was always just happy to help her. If she was having trouble getting along with him, or if I was, or if she's having a hard day, he could call me and say, hey, has she talked to you about anything? You know, it was just more of a big group of everybody working together.
Okay, so some wives would have problems, jealousy issues, and others wouldn't.
Well,
Or do
I
you think
everybody
underneath
had
they all-
sometimes.
okay.
I never did. I mean,
You
not
never
even
did?
Underneath. No.
Really?
Yeah, it's just, it never was a problem to me. I guess I never fell in love. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Maybe if you're in...
But I loved the kids. I loved the situation. I loved my sister wives.
Okay.
And so, I don't
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way. So if you were in deep, true love, maybe it would be more of a challenge.
maybe, or else, well, we were told a saying that was quite popular among the church by Headlund was, if you love me, you love those who I love.
Okay.
And so that's how I thought of it. It's, well, I love him, so I love all of his family. If I look back at what I know now, then I probably would have looked for an opportunity to leave the religion. Seeing that, you know, my kids are going to be trafficked, I don't want them lost. I don't want to never see them again.
What does it mean, trafficked? Somebody takes them to another
Somebody takes
location?
them, yeah, and you don't have any idea where they went.
That's how it worked
Right.
in FLDS? They can just take your kids and...
Your kids belong to God, not to you.
Oh, wow.
In the Bible, there's a story of Hannah and Samuel.
Okay.
And that's how it was. She dedicated her kids to God. After the child was old enough, she literally took him to the temple and said, here, take my child. And that's how we lived.
And when you were in it, that all seemed normal
That
until
part
it didn't.
Yes, the part that I have to give up my kids, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, no.
Okay.
But up to everything else, if I felt like that my kids were happy and safe, then yes.
So how many other women in FLDS were okay with the kids get taken away versus not okay with it?
I can't say what a woman thinks, because you don't dare say what you think when it comes to resisting authority.
Sure.
But no mom is going to willingly give up her kids.
For you, is it a challenge every day now? Or is it? It is?
Yes.
Okay.
All 6 of my daughters are still very faithful to FLDS.
So you don't talk with them?
I don't talk to the 3 older ones.
Okay.
Yesterday was actually my 3rd daughter's birthday. It's been exactly 1 year yesterday since she turned 18 and went back to FLDS.
She was out of it and then went back?
She was actually here with me.
Oh. And did she go back
yesterday,
because she missed the
on her
community?
She went back because that's what her salvation requires.
So you're in a tough position.
Yeah.
You have such a good spirit about you, though.
Well,
that's amazing.
That's the only way to go about it. Is you can't beat somebody or conquer an emotion or problem with hate. You have to conquer through love. I like the positive light, but at the same time, there is moms with their kids missing. My kids were missing for almost 5 years. And so that's a very important negative aspect, but I don't like to focus on the negative, except for that moms need to have and live with their kids.
Name and title, sir.
Luke Meredith. I'm the co-executive director of the Shore Creek Dream Center, along with my wife.
Okay.
So we get to be here. And Constance and I have been involved in Dream Center Network worldwide for some time, and that's just our passion. Brielle, the young lady who obtained the house, She said she wanted to turn it into something like this, and she's one woman with a big dream, and she ends up getting a hold of the Dream Center. And we're like, well, that's what we do. We hadn't thought of Colorado City, but that's the kind of thing that we do. We got 300 plus worldwide, so we came up, we took a look at the building, and we said, look at all these rooms. This would make a very good Dream Center. So if there's a need in the community that we can help with, let's do it.
We asked you guys to excuse this mess.
Oh, you're the final? Ooh.
We're throwing up Christmas. This is usually our theater room, but we're preparing. We adopt families every year for Christmas. So
Wow. The
this
fact
is a
that
hot mess.
the fact that I'm seeing Christmas decorations in this house makes me very happy.
FLDS doesn't celebrate Christmas.
No, Christmas was not allowed ever. It was considered a pagan, worldly, evil holiday that we weren't supposed to partake of.
And that is
So-
why Sam loves it so much.
Yeah.
Like we go big. Well, he married into my family. We already loved Christmas. to
Santa
begin
Claus.
with. Oh my gosh, all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So Halloween wasn't a big deal, I gather? That would be as pagan as it gets. What, any holidays, or were there any celebrations?
December 6th, December 3rd, and April 6th.
Yep.
What were those days?
Rulin's and Warren's birthdays and the Savior's birthday.
Okay.
We had days of fasting and prayer for those holidays.
New Year's?
Some families did New Year's, but yeah, mostly if you celebrated anything, it was in fasting and prayer.
How long would you fast for?
Usually just for that day.
Okay.
Well, for Warren's is December 3rd, and Rulin's was December 3rd, so we'd fast through all those days.
There were several moments when I was younger that we were required to fast for 4 days. We could drink water, but we could not eat food for 4 days. And we would still go out and work. I was working full time out doing construction on the job sites with no food. As a teenager, it was brutal. I definitely cheated sometimes and ate some food and was expecting lightning to come down and strike me, but thankfully that never happened. So the sign, the very famous pray and obey sign there on the chimney, that was Warren's direction to get that on the chimney. He wanted to remind everyone to pray and obey him. He was speaking for God, therefore everyone needed to obey him. The rumor is they're taking this down soon, so this will be one of the last shots you'll get of this chimney with the actual words on it.
This was all part of the compound here?
Yes.
Okay.
So all of this was a part of the grounds. The houses continue on back. You'll see through here the house with all the brick on it.
Okay.
That was Rulin's house, Warren's
way back
dad.
there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've actually been in there multiple times because my sister, one of my sisters, married into Rulin Jeff's house. She, I believe, was his 60th wife, and she married him as a teenager. So, you know, it's crazy to think about now, but at that time, it was such an honor to marry into the prophet's family, even though he was 80 years old, was such an honor for her to be able to do that.
This is my son, Salome. He's been missing since March of 2021. They said that he ran away from his father's house.
What are your thoughts on it?
Honestly, they're really good at hiding people of any age. I personally feel like he's out on a work crew somewhere because he's a big kid. At this time, he was 5'9", so you wouldn't think of him as a 13-year-old here.
So he's still in FLDS, you believe?
I believe so.
Would you want him to reach out to you?
I would really love it if he would reach out to me, and he has my number memorized, and I haven't changed it for that reason.
Okay, so maybe he sees this.
I hope so.
Or someone knows him.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks for sharing this. And I understand you don't want to be on camera. Totally understandable. I wouldn't either, to be
No, not
honest.
today.
Okay.
But thank you. The other three are with me, and we're living over at the house that the Dream Center has been kind enough to dedicate in his name. The day that I left, I had the three with me, and then the next day I drove up to Sevier County, where his father lives, to pick him up, thinking that he would let me take him. Because, I tried to explain to him that I was ready to make a different choice in life, and I felt at peace about it, and I was hoping that, maybe he'd understand that, for my peace, I don't know why I thought that, because it's always important to find your peace, but it's more important to not be an apostate. So in becoming an apostate, then they believed that I was giving up the right to be his mother.
Okay. So apostate is the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah.
Nothing worse.
Nope. Nothing really worse than apostate.
When she said that apostates are just the worst of the worst, I wish that people could understand what that actually entailed, because it's not just that, okay, now they are these bad people. We're taught at a young age that if we ever leave the church and become apostates, and for those that have, they are immediately on Satan's ground, and he has complete control over their lives. So for the kids in the FLDS that their mothers have left, and the church is telling them, hey, your mother's an apostate now, that scares the child. The child no longer wants to be with their parents if they left the church, because the church is telling them that now they're these awful people, and everything they tell you is a lie. So it's a very touchy, tricky situation.
The mothers are in really big fear for their children right now. There's a huge issue with the running away of children. So a lot of women are in custody battles, just like the woman we were just talking to, and when they're in the custody of their father that is in the FLDS, he can basically get brownie points from Warren by bringing the children to compounds, bringing them, and then they just say, oh, they ran away while they were in my custody, and the police can't do anything, because with runaways, if they go beyond state lines, it's really hard to find runaways. So they're really sending them off to work camps, they're sending them off to compounds, and Warren Jeffs recently has revealed in certain revelations that he's like gathering, especially girls. We have a very good close source to Warren Jeffs who recently told us that it's mostly girls in some of these compounds that are getting ready for marriages. Obviously, they don't care if it's an underage marriage, and they're getting them ready for that to happen again and start having children again. So all these mothers are living in fear that anytime they go with their father, there's a possibility that they might not ever come home and that they'll run away and be married off under Warren Jeffs' control.
And so when they're on a compound, law enforcement needs a warrant to get in there, right?
Well, yeah, and they have to have some kind of proof. If it's a runaway, it's hard to prove that they're going to be with somebody who has no relation to them, because in their minds, women and children are property of the priesthood. Okay, so they're raised their whole lives, and Warren had used his control so many times to separate families and tell children, well, now this is your mom and dad because your mom and dad aren't worthy of you. So kids are used to being displaced. That's not weird for them. So when that happens again and they said, oh, now you're going to this priesthood head, he's your new priesthood head, this is your new family, the kids aren't putting up a fight. They're like, okay, I need to be with the priesthood holder. I don't want to live with my apostate parents. And so if a parent sends them somewhere like that, there's no way for the police to know, because they're not blood related in any way. It's a church group, not a family member.
Okay, and then with state lines here, it's pretty easy.
Yep.
We're right on the border.
Yeah, and there's a lot going like into, it was North Dakota. We know that there's a compound there. There had been groups previously in Texas where Warren Jeffs built the temple. Children were being stolen in the middle of the night from their mothers and being told, your child went to Zion. 5-year-old kids. Literally, the mom would wake up, where's my child? He's off in Zion in Texas. And they had no idea, no way to contact them, nothing.
And the mothers could do nothing about it. Because once again, like Melissa said, they are property of the priesthood, the church, in other words, the property of the church. The church owns them. They are completely owned by them, because the prophet gave the man the wife, and therefore any children within that family are also part of the church, because it was all given to them by the church. It's awful to think about it that way, but ultimately that's kind of the idea behind it. So it's
a lot, we know. It's a lot. But it's a big issue right now, and there's a lot of organizations trying to...
It's a big issue right now. It's not going away, even though Warren Jeffs has been in prison for many years.
Yeah, it became more of an issue, this idea of running away. Basically, the church got smarter, because as women had places like the Dream Center to go to, and they realized that they could leave and take their children, there started to be these custody battles. And the state of Utah in particular, they're no stranger to the situation. They know what's going on. They know that the moms are trying to get away from this high demand religion. And so they were going through custody battles and trying to go through it the right way. And they were going with SWAT teams to literally forcibly remove children from other homes and give them back to the mothers. And it was a huge ruckus every time. They were going out, and because the people wouldn't just hand them over, a mom would come with custody papers and be like, here you go, I need my children back. And they'd be like, no way, we're not giving him back. So they had to start using law enforcement. And the FLDS realized, or the FLDS leaders realized, we don't want to deal with that mess. We don't want sheriffs. We don't want people coming and forcibly removing kids. But what happens if they just run away? If it's a runaway, we don't have to deal with law enforcement coming and trying to get them from us.
What Gladys said was very interesting. She really liked it in many ways. Only when her children were taken away did the alarm bells go off and she got out. But in a way, which was interesting, is she sort of misses the whole community of it.
Right.
Because you can see how lonely it would be,
Yeah.
right? Once you leave that, was that the same for you?
Yes. Well, when you leave, I mean, I imagine
Let's go get a snack.
I imagine it's similar with any religion.
Okay.
Leaving a community, a religion is so tough because of that community aspect of it. It's just so hard to leave all of your friends and family behind, especially in a place like this where, you know, it's so easy to lose all of them if they know that you're no longer a part of that religion.
Right. Hello, ma'am.
Everyone, when they're raised that way, of course they're going to think it's great because this is the only way to live according to their knowledge. They don't know anything different. So that's why you hear, and she so recently left. She doesn't really know what it's like to date anyone that's not a part, or marry anyone that's not a part of the FLDS. She hasn't experienced that.
She knows very few people outside of FLDS, right?
Exactly. She's still very much involved. Still lives in the same town. Still talks to people that were a part of it their whole lives.
I guess it's healing for her to be in that house, serving a purpose.
Right.
But you'd also have to think that's got to be brutal. It's like all the memories there.
Never get away from it completely.
Never
right?
get away, right? I mean, you left town.
I did. I was gone. Yeah.
Which
I think
out of
was,
sight, out of mind helps a little bit.
in a way, it was like ripping off a Band-Aid, and it was better. But at the same time, I drove back to town multiple times just to drive into town and then leave again. I couldn't go visit my family. But I missed it. I missed the community.
That's brutal.
It was difficult to go to sleep sometimes because you literally leave your past, your family, and everything is gone immediately. So
your parents are gone.
Yeah. So I can understand why Gladys, in some ways, is okay sticking around in the community. Just to have the memories of that time when it was a community.
If I'm doing what God tells me to do, right, there's certain comfort in that. And so even if you're being abused, or most of the time you don't realize you're being abused if you're raised in it, right? You don't realize. There are things that Sam's like, oh, I want to consider that abuse. And other people are like, kind of, you know, it might have been mental or emotional abuse. You just live with what you are raised in, and that's it. But there's comfort in that, right? There's comfort in the rules. There's comfort in feeling like God's happy with me, and that can be enough. And I've been raised to be told my whole life that that's enough. And as long as I have the next life, then what does this life matter all that much? Like, I'm gonna have eternity to be happy in every other way. So if I can endure this, at least I have the comfort of that.
I remember coming to this store as a kid and always wanting to be old enough to buy a lighter, and they would keep telling me, no, you can't buy the lighter, you're not old enough. So it was dreams to be able to buy a lighter.
Yeah, I haven't only been up here a little bit. I'm from Vegas.
Oh, you are?
We had to ID everyone.
That's where we live now. My wife and I live in Vegas now.
Oh.
Well, I grew up here. Did you? Okay, awesome. Nice. In Colorado City? Okay. Okay.
You're not in it any longer?
She would not be dressed like that if she was in it.
Okay.
Are you still with your family now?
Yeah, I live with my mom. My
Oh, good.
grandparents are still part of it.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I still get to see them.
Good.
They still see you?
Yeah.
They're cool with it?
Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm like, you're stuck with me.
Because some families, once you leave, you're gone.
Yeah. That's how it was like when I first left.
They came around. That's good.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
See you guys.
Have a good day.
So it just totally depends on the family then?
It does. I've heard that there's a lot of families that are still in contact with their FLDS family, but it's most families that strongly believe in Warren Jeffs still don't have that relationship with their kids because Warren doesn't allow them to. The United Order is something completely different. The United Order,
the elite group.
The United Order is a group that Warren Jeffs put together, rebaptized, and then rebaptized again into the church to be a part of the elite group.
It's the Navy SEALs
Basically,
of FLDS?
Of FLDS, yeah.
So she was part of that?
She was a part of that. I left before all that happened.
Okay.
So
okay.
I wasn't
So
here
this
for
is
that.
this is an overall video,
Uh-huh.
but really, to get into it,
Yeah.
we're talking years
No.
of stories,
It would
right?
it'd be a long time. Yeah.
Which you guys do have on your channel. These guys have an awesome YouTube channel. That's how I found them.
Oh, thank you.
Growing up in polygamy.
Yes.
And so if you want the deeper dives, audience, this is just sort of a teaser actually, just sort of an overview, but to get into the nuance and the deeper story, you got to check out their channel. I'm going to leave that link down below. You guys rock. You know why I liked you guys, why I wanted to do this video with you guys, because you've left and you don't come across with a bunch of rage.
Right.
And I didn't want to make a rage bait video. I wanted sort of more of a level, even keeled sort of, you're not hating on everyone.
Right.
I don't feel that vibe.
No.
And some people that left, which are totally understandable. I can't speak for anyone.
Right.
If I left a bad situation, I'd probably be more unhinged than you. So that's a lot of respect to
Yeah,
you. It's a lot of
thank you.
maturity. But the point is, guys, their channel goes into this stuff in a very balanced, interesting way.
This hill that we see ahead of us, when anyone refers to over the hill, this is the hill they're talking about, because you're leaving Colorado City and you're going up over the hill into Santenello Park. And Santenello Park is a group of people that left the FLDS church when the prophet Roy Johnson, we called him Uncle Roy, when the prophet Roy Johnson died and the first Jeffs took power, which was ruling Jeffs, a lot of people split off from the FLDS church and went over the hill and built their roots into a place called Santenello Park. So we'll go up over the hill and just give you a glimpse of what that kind of looks like.
And that's fundamentalist also.
Oh, yep, they practice polygamy to this day, multiple wives. It's still going on to this day, yes.
Is it as extreme as FLDS?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. I would say it's just as extreme before Warren came around. One of the things that they take pride in or say that they never do is underage marriages. They say that they always let the woman be at least 18 years old, or the girl, and then they can decide if they're ready or not.
What's FLDS's age? Do they have an age?
There was no age. I had people that I knew very well that got married as young as 14, 13 years old. And they were, in some cases, not only asked to, but forced to get married.
Oof.
And in a lot of cases, they were not the first wife. They were the second or the third or the 50th wife. And so, those are the horrific things that you hear about that happen, to my knowledge, only in the FLDS church. If ever they came over to our side of the town, to the parks or the stores, we would pick them out because they dressed differently. They didn't really wear the prairie dresses. And sometimes they would let their hair hang down. And so we would pick them out, and we were not very welcoming to them at all. And so I imagine they felt, that it was difficult to ever go into the town of Colorado City and Hilldale.
We had come out with a girl recently, and she was sharing with us a little bit about the community in general. And she said that they all have a lot of big businesses, and they sell mortgages. Like they're it started with like a big mortgage company, and now they're huge. And she said an interesting fact here, because I know we had talked about tithing in the different groups, but she said in Santenello Park, the norm for the church members is 10%, but there is an elite group of priesthood holders that if you pay an extra 10%, you get to be part of this elite group. So you're paying 20% tithing. But she said basically it's like a big club of successful businessmen. And basically they group together and they help. Like if a guy is a younger guy and he's like, I want to start a business, I'll give 20% tithing to be a part of this group. And these really successful businessmen help them also become successful. So almost everybody, or all of the higher ups in the church here, have beautiful homes, finished homes, a lot of property, all that.
The homes are just so big and beautiful.
So they're having a lot of kids.
They're having a lot of kids, yes. And I know that they're having multiple wives. especially the leaders of the church.
So it's not a requirement you have to have multiple wives, right?
It depends on who you ask, to be honest. Some people believe that you have to have 3 wives to get into heaven. That's a common saying for whatever reason. I never was taught that as a young boy growing up, but a lot of polygamous groups, for whatever reason, maybe it was one of the early day Mormon leaders, must have said something, because a lot of them believe that you have to have
The
at least
celestial
3.
kingdom, right?
The celestial kingdom, yep, the highest degree of glory. In order to reach that, and actually to their belief system, become a god. They believe that you can actually become a god and have multiple wives and have your own children in the next life.
It looks a lot better off over here.
Yes. You know, it's funny, my father wanted to build a beautiful big house and finish it and make it this amazing place. The problem with anyone finishing and making a house beautiful is Warren could take it away the next day. They didn't actually own it, so...
Who's their prophet?
They don't really have prophets. They have a brotherhood. It's multiple men that come together as the leaders of the church. There is one that's kind of the head of the brotherhood, but yeah, they don't believe in one prophet over here. They kind of changed all of that when they moved this way. You would think you might see that like in San Diego or something. That doesn't really fit in around here.
And so what percentage do you think are polygamists and following the church?
So that are following the Centennial Park Church, I would say probably 90%. There are some people that live here that have broken off from the Centennial Park. There's always these break-offs. One of the leaders says something, someone disagrees, and they start their own belief system. So there are some out here that no longer believe and follow the Centennial Park group, but out here it's a higher percentage. I would say probably 90% of
That
them.
place has mirrored windows.
It's not surprising. Most of these smaller communities are fairly shut off if they don't know the person. They don't really welcome you in with open windows and open doors.
Just when I think I start to understand America just a little bit, doing this work, traveling all over, speaking with so many different types of people, the layers of the onion peel back more and more and more. And I didn't even know of this group.
Okay, so that right there that you're seeing is actually a house. It's not a fire department. The person that built that, he actually used to build Walmarts for a living, and so he made it like a big, almost warehouse-looking building, but that's his house.
You can pack up the tractor trailer truck.
Exactly.
So this religion out here is growing.
It is, actually, yes. And this one is not like the FLDS where it's kind of falling apart. It is growing, not at a rapid rate, but there are some people that are actually converting. Not just being born in it, but are actually converting. There are some men that kind of talk about their belief to other people outside of the community, and some of the people think it's a good idea. I don't know if it's just for multiple wives or if they actually believe in the doctrine. I don't know, but...
So we're pretty far out in the desert. Where is this supply of wives coming from? Like, they're moving in? Like, how does that work?
Most of them are being born into it. When each family has so many kids, they multiply very quickly. That's one of the leaders. I don't know or remember his name, but that's one of the leaders living in that beautiful home.
How does it feel, Sam, driving around these streets for you?
It's mixed feelings because I look down on this community. Growing up in the FLDS, I looked down upon them as apostates. So we didn't really come over here. I did drive around with my brothers on these streets on occasion, more than anything to be rebellious and feel like we were doing something exciting in our lives. You know, since we couldn't watch movies or listen to the music we wanted to listen to or play video games, or really we couldn't do anything. I believe another leader lives here. So we would try to find anything to have an adventure, feel like we were doing something exciting. And one of those things was to drive on apostate streets.
So if I wanted to move into this community as a Gentile, could I?
You could now, yes. Even in Colorado City and Hilldale, Utah, you could move there now because of the way things have turned out. Now it's more welcoming. Now Warren's not around, and a lot of the people that believe in Warren are no longer around. So now you could, yes. I don't know how welcome you would be in Centennial Park because their belief system is still very much together, you know, so it might be a little different out here.
So driving around here, you feel totally fine with?
Yeah, for the most part. It's surreal, you know. It's weird. It's a weird feeling, and every time I see, the most random things, like certain trees or certain fences. When I see them, it definitely is just a flood of memories that I wish I could talk about, but you know, I'd be on here for 24 hours talking about all these little things.
That's your channel.
And yeah, exactly. But believe it or not, this place has an airport. I don't know if it is much of an airport anymore. When I lived here, Reuben Jeffs, which is just funny because Reuben Jeffs was the prophet, he had an airplane, a private airplane, that he would drive around or fly from either here to Salt Lake or here to Canada, and he had a private pilot. And our entire lives we were told that the devil controlled the air and the water. Therefore, we were not allowed to fly, and we were not allowed to go on boats. And our prophet was flying because apparently he had power over the devil. I don't know, but it was confusing. And the airport up here is where he would fly in and out of. And sometimes we would hear that he was coming into town, and we would actually join together as a group to watch him fly into town in his jet.
People from town would just come out here to watch it happen.
Yeah, we were very in awe of our leaders. We thought for sure they were talking with God. They could do no wrong. We were just in awe of them. We thought, it's just hard to explain, but I would have given my life for them at that time.
So how did you pop out of it? It seems like you were so intertwined, and that was your world, and how did you make the shift?
It really just came down to getting out. I didn't agree with some of the rules, and I was a teenager, and I wanted to experience life a little bit different. And then once I was on the outside looking in, started to realize how crazy things really were, and I started getting more information. When I was in it, we weren't getting information from outside sources. They didn't let us watch TV. They didn't let us read a lot of the books that were being published. So we had no idea what Warren was actually doing because they wouldn't let us. They wouldn't let us. I mean, it was similar to what you think about North Korea, where they don't let information come in and everyone's in their own little compound. That's kind of the way it was.
Arizona Airport of the Year.
Arizona.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it won.
The Airport of the Year. Look at that. I wonder what that means.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
Airport of the Year, correct?
Yeah.
We saw that. What does that mean?
I'm not sure.
You work down here.
I'm actually just about to head out.
Oh,
You're
really?
flying out.
Plane. Yeah.
Oh, you're a pilot?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you learn?
My dad runs it.
Your dad owns?
We're both going.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are you from here?
Yeah. I haven't been here for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Very often.
Okay.
So I just come in to have my plane worked on and stuff, but I actually don't live here now.
I was just telling him the stories of back when we were kids. We'd come out and watch Reuben Jeffs flying in his jet.
Yeah, those were pretty cool days.
Good times, right?
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little kid. So.
Did you grow up in Colorado City, Hillsdale, or out here?
Colorado City.
Okay.
Yeah,
you guys didn't know each other.
I'm sure we saw each other around.
I recognize him.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't do much, like maybe work crew or something.
Right. Something, most likely we
Okay.
helped build the fence together around Warren's house or something like that. But
yeah.
What age were you when you left?
Well, I got asked out
Okay.
type of deal, but I was like 22. That was 10 plus years ago.
okay. So you were around longer than I was.
My dad still is, as far as I know.
Your dad still is?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
like still.
he's okay? You're not apostate in his eyes or any of that stuff?
I don't even know what he really thinks, you know? He's chill.
Okay.
He's not like the rest of FLDS.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, he kind of has to get along with everybody out here.
Yeah, it's tough, man. A lot of these fathers and mothers are in this tough spot where they're not really sure what they believe because Warren is saying these crazy things and they're not sure if it's coming from him or someone else. And then they've got all of their children that have left that they're just like wanting a relationship, but it's just so tough. It's tough to know.
It's a lot crazier
Oh, sorry.
than that nowadays, though.
Yeah.
It's crazier than that now?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I could go into it, but I'm flying back to Tennessee today.
Good. You're getting out of here.
I gotta get going.
Well, appreciate it, man.
So This building right here to our right was a multi-purpose building. First of all, it was owned by some of my cousins, and they built toothpicks in there. The flavored toothpicks. I don't know if anyone would know what those are. They're toothpicks that come in a small container, and they have different flavors, like peppermint and different flavors like that people would buy, and they would stick them in their mouth and suck on them or chew on them and pick stuff out of their teeth when needed. So that was one of the purposes. Another reason is we actually had homeschool in there. So all of the schooling that I ever experienced was completely homeschooled. So it was taught by either one of the mothers or one of the older siblings. And a couple of the years we held it in this building right here.
Was there any state or federal oversight when you do homeschooling like that? You can teach whatever you want?
Yep. And a lot of it was church stuff. A lot of it was teaching about the church history and why it's important to live certain ways and what God says about this and that. This is still a post office.
It seems so surreal out here, and then you see these markers like the U.S. Postal Service, right? But everything else out here seems quite foreign, almost, other than the gas stations and businesses.
Things used to be so much more normal before Warren. I mean, you look over here to the right and you see the grocery store. That grocery store has been there for as long before I was born. And we would go in there and it was like a regular grocery store. I mean, everyone was wearing prairie dresses, but other than that,
Now it's a hardware store.
Oh, now it's a hardware store. But you'd go to the back of the store and there'd be someone taking professional photos, and you could go with your family and get your picture taken. And there was a barbershop right there in that small little...
What about these new buildings? Who's moving into these?
So that's a big development being done by apostates.
Okay.
And so some people are happy, some people are not happy about new big apartment buildings going up in this town.
So the apostates have land here and are making money with it, obviously.
Yes, definitely. They bought up a lot of land.
So there must be friction in the town.
There are some people that are apostates as well that don't agree with someone coming in and taking over this land and building big commercialized buildings on.
Who do they think's going to move in here, though?
Exactly, and
that's a lot of housing.
That's what people are afraid of, is that a lot more outsiders will.
What about a house like this? What's going on there?
My guess there is someone started building their dream home, got that far, and Warren kicked them out of the community, or told them to go move into a different house, and they just put an end to it. Unfortunately, like I said, people didn't own their homes. The church owned it. So they could start their dream home. They could even completely finish their dream home.
With their money.
With their money, and then Warren could take it away. So this is the famous meeting house. This is where we held all of our meetings before Warren Jeffs was put into prison. We had Sunday meetings here, and we had Saturday morning meetings here. And it's weird to see it now all boarded up and kind of gringy looking. This was an icon of the city. I mean, we would fill up the entire parking lot surrounding this. We would fill up overflow parking lots. I mean, this place was just covered with cars. Thousands of people walking in at the same time into these doors here to go to church. And we were told that the moment we walked into these doors for church, it was a safe space. That the outside influences, that Satan and his demons and angels were not allowed in because it was dedicated by the prophet. But they would tell us, if you could actually see all of the Satan's angels, if you had the eyes to see their spirits when you walk out the doors trying to tempt you and cause you to do evil, you would never dare walk out these doors. They would say things like that to keep that fear of making us do what's right throughout the rest of the week.
So fear was the ultimate mechanism with this group?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Okay, so I just noticed this for the first time. No temples.
No temples.
This was your temple, basically?
Well, not necessarily. This was just considered a meeting house where we'd hold our services.
But where are your churches?
There were no temples in Colorado City, Hilldale. They did build one in Texas.
Why didn't they have a temple here? It seems like there's enough money coming through.
You know what's funny? I think the reason for it, well, it was Warren's doing after the fact.
Yep.
After his dad had passed away. I think the reason that they didn't do it here is because Warren wanted it to seem like only the elite, only the most righteous could live where the temple was. And so he would take people that he thought was the most righteous or the most the most obedient to him from this place, and they would just disappear overnight, and they'd be gone. And they would go to Zion,
Texas.
Texas. And that's where they're building the temple. Exactly.
On a plane or buses or cars?
Mostly passenger vans or trucks. Whatever they could do to fit people, cram people in and get them over there.
No offense to any Texans out there, but I would never think of Texas as being Zion.
Well,
of all places, I mean,
not only
that's got something to really fire me up.
Yeah.
Right? That's got some like.
Texas doesn't have the mountains.
I mean, it does, but not like that. I mean, Big Bend, but still, Utah's a little more impressive, I'd say.
So one of the main reasons is Warren Jeffs traveled the country looking for the place, right? And they tell the story that when he got to Texas and pulled in, he said, this is the place. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking he's like, this is where I can hide. This is the place. I remember as a young teenager sitting in this meeting house where on just the other side of this building, the FBI rushed the doors to try to get Warren Jeffs. At the time, Warren Jeffs was not here. He was on the run elsewhere, and they were trying to find him. So we were sitting there. I was sitting in a chair facing this way, just like this, and we were saying the opening or closing prayer, one of the prayers. We all had our heads bowed, and all of a sudden we heard this commotion, shouting in the door, and people rattling the door trying to get in because we had bodyguards by the doors to keep people that didn't want in out. And we all kind of looked up, and by the time we looked up, all of the important leaders of the church were gone. We looked up at the stand, they were gone. So it was the person praying, all the leaders were gone, and we're all like, what is going on here? The rumor is they ran out these back doors here, jumped on four-wheelers, and headed down into the creek, and just took off and went and hid somewhere.
Okay.
So the FBI didn't catch him.
Yeah.
But
they didn't catch anyone.
They did not catch him. No, they got away at that time. Yep. So later on, obviously Warren Jeffs is caught in Vegas, but at the time they were still looking for him and didn't get him. Believe it or not, the mountain you see right behind the water tanks here, which another thing about this town is the water tanks are just iconic. Everyone knows that they're here when they look up and see the two different water tanks, but the mountain behind it, we were told we could never hike it. And I was afraid to ever get near that mountain because we were told that Gadiant and robbers, those are were evil people from the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
It talks about them. We were told that their spirits were still dwelling in this mountain, and that if we ever hiked that mountain, they would capture us and we would just disappear to who knows where. We'd be gone. And there were a couple stories of people that hiked the mountain and we never heard of them again.
I know why. Warren Jeffs had his gold up there. Didn't want anyone.
That's probably exactly right. So after I left, 18 years old, I leave the church. I actually came back after I'd been out for a while and no longer believed that Warren was a prophet. I came back and was like, I'm going to hike this mountain. So I hiked up the mountain just to prove that it wasn't possessed by spirits. But most people never dared hike that mountain. It was just,
still to this day, you think?
Those that believe in the church don't dare, yeah.
So in a way for you, it was an overcoming.
Oh yeah, definitely. To prove that, you know what, if I can do this and nothing happens to me, it's proof that it's a lot of what the church said has to be false. Like many other places, this also used to have a fence around it. This is Cottonwood Park. They took the fence down to try to make it seem more open and welcoming for outsiders. But there used to be a fence around it with gates that they would close if the community wasn't using the park in a way to keep outsiders from getting in and using the park. But now it's open, anyone can come in and use it. We even welcome Santenello Park people, come on over.
Did outsiders try to come to this park when you were growing up?
Oh yes.
Really? Just out of curiosity?
Yes, in fact, Melissa, when she was young, she came out.
Okay.
So I grew up most of my life in St. George, but I also spent a few years living in Laverkin. So there's Hurricane, then there's Laverkin, which is the gateway to Zion, right? But you can also come up this way. And when I lived out there, my mom had heard that there were some amazing parks out here. And so we came out here as a young kid to check out the parks. And my first time ever on a teeter-totter was with a little polygamist kid that didn't know how to say no thank you. And we were just on the teeter-totter, and it just wasn't even a big deal to us. But I think now looking back, I'm like, they were probably freaking out a little bit at the fact that I was an outsider. But
You were from the LDS church.
yeah, I was raised LDS.
You weren't raised FLDS.
No.
So
No, they were like I considered them like our cousins. So growing up in St. George, you know, Hilldale's about 45 minutes outside of it. So we're very aware of the community, but we just thought they're religious cousins and everyone should just leave them alone because they're just trying to practice polygamy, but religiously, you know, they're good people just trying to do what they think is right. And that's really all we really knew about the community.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here now to kind of go throughout the community and talk to different people, because if you had been here 15 years ago, you would not have been welcome. Big trucks would have been following you around. People would have been scaring you out of this community before you ever showed up. So it was a lot different. Now a lot of outsiders are moving in and are feeling more welcome. But back then, when I was living here, no, I was one of those kids that would get in the truck and scare an outsider out of the community. I didn't want them here. They're evil people. Get out of our community. And I assumed they were here like you, filming people and causing all of these problems.
causing problems. So what would you do with your big truck? You just tailgate me or what?
Yes. So really what it came down to is these trucks, once again, as you've seen, have tint, limo tint on them. So no one can see inside. You don't know if I'm holding 6 guns at you or what is happening. All you know is that this truck that's 20 feet tall is following 3 feet behind your bumper until you get out of the community.
And they'll just follow
That's
you
all
around
you know.
really close.
And it scared a lot of people, trust me. Yeah.
Or like motorcyclists, when Sam was little, a motorcyclist came through. Now, riding motorcycles is big no-no,
It
big
was
evil.
bad.
And so the little kids would go out and they would literally throw rocks and stones at the motorcyclists till they'd get out of town. Like kids out on the street
Yeah.
just...
Motorcycles were bad. Why?
You know, maybe
One of those
I
things,
don't know why. For whatever reason, they were just bad, just like dogs. We weren't allowed to have dogs. They were bad. Motorcycles were bad. Weren't allowed to have them. We were okay having 4-wheelers and things like that, but not for whatever reason, not motorcycles.
And not dogs.
And not dogs.
You were saying something so interesting. That was fascinating. I was talking about this guy we saw today, and I was saying basically, do you think he had younger wives? And then you dropped a bomb on me that was very interesting.
Well, it's just a good reminder that the people, they get assigned their wives. So the average guy, yeah, the leaders could be corrupt, possibly asking for underage wives. Most of the men in the community, they're assigned their wives. And if the prophet says, here's your new wife, she's 14, are you going to look him in the eye and say, well, I don't want a 14-year-old? And he's going to look at you and say, so you're questioning what God wants for you. God told me that this 14-year-old is meant to be your 4th wife. Are you telling me you don't trust God? And that's what these men are dealing with. And so who's going to question that authority in that sense? Like, it's not the men.
And if you question it, it's like, bye-bye house.
Bye-bye other wives. What if I have 3 other wives and 20 other children, and now I have to leave the community and leave all of my wives and all of my children because I wasn't willing to take on another wife or whoever you told me, or if it's
So
not
I never
strict
thought
obedience.
about it that way. The men could feel really trapped in this.
100%. The women can have situations where they are oppressed or in circumstances that there's abuse or these other things that can happen. But the men also can be victims as well. And I think we overlook that a lot. We don't think about the pressure that this man has to live perfectly. And if his family's not perfect, and if his wives aren't perfect, and if his children aren't perfect, if anything in his life and household isn't perfect, he can lose everything. He can lose his business. I know that you talked to Sam before about the fact that everything is church-owned, right? It's called the law of consecration. It's a fundamental Mormonism belief that the church should own everything. And the early Latter-day Saints actually tried it and failed at it and couldn't do it. And so the FLDS tried to do it. But when we say everything, like their businesses were signed over. So if a man's kicked out of the community, they could have a multi-million-dollar business. That's gone. Warren just takes it and all the profits. Their wives are gone. Their kids are gone. Their house is gone. Everything.
So when the prophet says you're marrying a 14-year-old 4th wife,
you say, okay.
Well,
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, you're correct. And it's not that Warren was just telling them this could happen to you. If you disobey me, I'll take away your stuff. No, he was doing it time and time again. So the men were living in fear all the time that if I don't obey perfectly, this will happen to me and I'm gone. They know it will happen. They knew it would. They saw it all the time.
He used people as examples. One of his very first big purges, he literally stood up at the pulpit one Sunday.
I was sitting there in that meeting and he literally over the pulpit, whole community in the audience, and he called out several men and told them, "You're out because you disobeyed or you did something that God didn't want you to do, and you're no longer welcome here." And they literally had to stand up right then, walk out, no goodbyes to their family. You're out of here.
Wives and children.
He made an example of a lot of people to put fear into the other members of the church.
This thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is brand new. A lot of the play stuff you see here is new since I left. A lot of the really dangerous things are gone.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
Can you guys walk up next to this cottonwood here just to show the scale? I've never seen a cottonwood even half this size. This is huge. Sam, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4". Check this out. You see the speakers up there?
Yep.
So a lot of the trees have these speakers. And back when I was young, this was the park where we held all of the community events. When I was young, living out here was kind of fun. We had the Harvest Festival, we had different events that we would hold in this park here where the whole community would come together. And it was just a blast. We got to see friends, we got to see other people in the community, and just had a great time. But someone could get on the speaker and say something and the entire park would hear it. Like, "Hey everybody, it's time for so-and-so to sing a part over here," and we go watch somebody perform on the stage. And there was a lot of, you know, skits and performances that the community would put together, and we would get to go watch that as a community.
So you'd have fun.
We had a lot of fun. When I was a kid, it was a good time. It really was. So this bridge, obviously, you can probably see underneath it, it's very steep. There are train tracks that run around this park. There is a small train in that tunnel over there to the right.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that tunnel, or that train, is brand new. You know, when I lived here, there was a train that looked like it came from before trains were invented. And we would always wonder how it worked, but it did. And that was kind of the charm, is it was this old train. But now they built some bullet train. It's probably a lot of fun, but this train track goes around the entire park. Another thing that this bridge leads to is the infamous, famous big slide, the big cottonwood slide.
Look at that.
This is the bad boy right here. You know, it may just look like, oh wow, that's a big slide. But when I was 4 years old, I mean, you may as well have me jump off the Empire State Building at this point.
Sam, do you still have it in you?
You know what? At this point, my feet might reach the bottom before I get started. Even this ladder, I walk up this ladder like no big deal right now. Let me say, when you're a little kid, the fear of falling through that ladder
How many
is
times
real.
have you done this?
Oh, gee, I have no idea. Hundreds, thousands. This is what it's all about. Woo-hoo!
Like a pro.
Good times, man. This little shack over here that's all boarded up. The windows, you can see, were propped open. I remember as a young boy walking through there, and they would have chili. They would be giving out chili. And over here, they'd be cutting watermelons and giving slices of watermelon and breakfast and lunch. And you didn't pay for this. You walked into the park and it was a free-for-all. It was a community event. You walked in, you just enjoyed everything. I stuffed myself full of carameled apples and everything I could possibly think of.
So you're glad you grew up like this?
Honestly, I wouldn't change it. I think it really has defined who I am today.
Yep.
I will say I wouldn't want my children to live and grow up the way I did, just because I feel like the way that we have decided to raise our children is better.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. I take the good things that I learned here, and I apply that to our family now. I really do feel like I learned a lot of good values growing up in this small community.
And you don't look down on the FLDS now?
I don't look down on the FLDS people, no. No, I don't. I look down on what Warren Jeffs and some of the other leaders, and maybe even prophets before Warren Jeffs, did some things that I highly disagree with.
Okay.
But as far as the people, what they were trying to do, what they were trying to stand for, I don't look down on that at all, no.
Okay. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate
You're
it.
awesome. Appreciate you.
Okay, guys, and one last note here. Sam and Melissa have an awesome channel, YouTube channel. That's how I found them. Growing Up in Polygamy.
Correct.
That link is down below here. Without people like Sam and Melissa, there's no way we would have a chance of getting into this world today. So thank you guys.
Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Until the next one.